Welcome, everybody, to the pilot edition of the 30-Minute Midas Touch. I am your host, the Golden Boy, Greg Anthony. And this first episode, it's not going to really have a topic necessarily. What we're going to do is just kind of give you an introduction into myself and why you should listen to this podcast. So if you think Kenny Omega is the greatest wrestler of all time, if you think Orange Cassidy is one of the most entertaining wrestlers out there today, if you like dick flips and invisible grenades and girls with bloody tampons, then this is absolutely not the podcast for you. I am what some people would call a traditionalist, and they usually smirk when they say that because what they really mean to say is that they think that I'm out of touch and that I'm old and I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. When I say traditionalist, what I mean is that I'm a fan of professional wrestling. I'm a fan of the things and the core beliefs that made this business successful for a century or close to it. So that's the professional wrestling that I want to see. That's the professional wrestling that I love. That's the professional wrestling that made me a fan, almost 40 years ago. And that's the professional wrestling that I still believe is the best form of this business. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Whys, the hows, and all that kind of thing. But also, we've already had a couple questions of why 30 minutes? Why are you doing 30 minutes and not 2 hours? Why are you doing 30 minutes and not 3 hours? It's really pretty simple. Professional wrestling, before the pandemic, I watched, and that we were slated to have around 17 or 18 hours of new content every week in professional wrestling. If you're a wrestling fan, that is an enormous amount of new content. There's absolutely no way you would be able to keep up with everything. If you watched 5 or 6 hours of professional wrestling a week, new content, then I would consider you one of the super fans. So to ask someone to watch 18 hours is almost ridiculous, right? So what happens is a determination has to be made. You have to pick and choose what you like and what you want to listen to. Same thing here. Everybody and their mother has a podcast. And I understand that we're coming very late to this game, that things have been going on for many years now. And when you have such successful podcasts like Jim Cornette and Arn Anderson and Bruce Pritchard and so on and so forth, I'm not asking for a lot of your time. I'm asking for 30 minutes. Turn me on your way to work. Turn me on when you're maybe you're doing 30 minutes of cardio at the gym. We're going to pick a topic. We're going to talk about it for about 30 minutes, and we're going to rock and roll and dive deep as we can into it and in that one specific topic. Also, when we say 30 minutes, that is a loosely based 30 minutes. We're not going to go 30 minutes on the dot. Sometimes it's going to go 28:30. Sometimes it's going to go 31:20. But we're going to be in and around 30 minutes for each session, and we hope that everybody here can keep tuned in for that long and hear what we have to say. Next question is, why does the Golden Boy Greg Anthony deserve a podcast? What criteria do you have to meet to have a podcast? Well, for me, I've been a wrestler for 20 years. And I've got to wrestle a lot of big names in this industry. I've wrestled Jerry Lawler, Jay Lethal, Buff Bagwell, Bill Dundee, Brian Kendrick, Zach Gowen, Chris Masters, Sam Adonis, Stroh, Tommy Dreamer, Billy Gunn, Ace Steel, DDP, Matt Hardy, Johnny Storm, Rock and Roll Express, Sin Bodie, Jerry Lynn, Road Dogg Jesse James, Moondog Spot, Pork Chop Cash, Tracy Smothers, Bob Orton Jr., Hardcore Holly, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and many, many more. That's just a little tidbit of my in-ring career. So I consider myself very much a student of the game. There's going to be times when we break down matches and we break down the hows and the whys of the business and things like that. So in the 20 years, I've accumulated a lot of knowledge. And I'm considered, a lot of people, don't like to say it out loud, but I'm considered one of the best, if not the best of the best, as sometimes I like to put over. So another thing is, I'm a wrestling booker. I've been a part of the creative process and since the very beginning. I was very lucky that people saw that I had a mind for this business and wanted to cultivate that as much as possible. So I had a lot of good bookers above me and people that I worked for that would help me take my ideas and then kind of polish them up so it could be something usable, and that was a skill that I learned. Booking in professional wrestling is a lost art. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't do the right thing with it, then it doesn't matter, so booking's always been near and dear to my heart, and I've studied some of the greats. I've got to pick the minds of guys like Jim Cornette and James J. Dillon and guys like that as far as the booking process goes. So I feel that I have a lot of knowledge to pass on in that area as well, but also just to talk wrestling so people understand the mindset of what's going on in certain things. I'm also a professional wrestling promoter. I have my own company, and I've promoted close to 700 events, which roughly is about 4,000 matches, 3,500, 4,000, somewhere in there. Promoting is another thing it's become standard place in professional wrestling to be happy about losing money. And that's something we're going to cover, and you're going to hear me say quite a bit on this podcast, but I am a successful wrestling promoter in the sense that our shows make money and we stay in the black and we're able to wrestle year after year, and wrestling pays for wrestling. I don't have a day job that I go to earn money so I can wrestle. Wrestling pays for wrestling. So, and I think there's very few people across the country that do that. I'm also a professional wrestling trainer. We have a school here at Pro Wrestling Mid-South Academy, and the school is something that I've taken from years of different things. I did a training camp with Dr. Tom years ago. I took a lot of things that he did. I did a lot of things that a guy named Motley Cruz taught me, a lot of things that Rude from Naughty by Nature, a lot of things from Sir Mo, a lot of things that one of my friends, Matt Riviera, who was trained by Bill Ash, a lot of things that he was taught. And I've made it into this melting pot of professional wrestling, and that's what I use as my training curriculum. And like I tell everybody, for me, if you don't have the right training, it's going to be hard to get to the next level, whatever the next level is. You have to have that thought process. I teach my guys all the time. It's give a man a fish, feed him for the day, teach a man a fish, feed him for a lifetime. I'm teaching them the basics of this business, the core values of this business, so they can understand how to put things together on their own and make decisions on their own so they can one day be in better positions than we're in. The knowledge that guys like Tracy Smothers and guys like that took me in the ring and beat the living hell out of me and taught me a lot of things. We've turned around and we teach to our guys, and hopefully that's how the business continues. That's how it's supposed to continue anyway. There's also, there's people that helped me along the way that if they didn't help me, I probably wouldn't be here. I was fortunate enough to come under a guy named Alvin Minnick. We had started with Memphis Championship Wrestling we really didn't have the training we were supposed to have or anything like that. But, Alvin saw something in us. And when the Memphis Championship Wrestling fell apart, we were able to have a tryout with Alvin. And he really took us under his wing and gave us a steady place of work. And that's so important for young guys, that they're able to get in the ring consistently and apply the things that they're learning at a rapid pace. So Alvin Minnick, who's we joke around that he's like my wrestling dad. Sometimes he calls me, he says, do what daddy tells you to do, that kind of thing. Sometimes we fight back and forth, but he's actually been one of my best friends over the last 20 years. And he's always done right by me, and I always try to do right by him. I also had the opportunity to tag with beautiful Bobby Eaton for 2 years as the tag team Midnight Gold with our manager, Brian Thompson. Now, Bobby Eaton is considered one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time, definitely one of the greatest tag team wrestlers of all time, and that experience alone was worth its weight in gold, no pun intended. But what Bobby taught me most was he really gave me confidence in myself. I came in very, I consider myself a leader, but when you're tagging with Bobby Eaton, you kind of want to take a back seat, obviously, to him. But I came in and he heard my thought process, and he saw the things I was doing, and he called me the captain of Midnight Gold the entire time we were teaming, which is, it's ridiculous to think about something like that, but that's the kind of level of respect that he tried to instill in me. And the entire time Midnight Gold was together, I never took one single pin. Bobby Eaton refused to let them beat anyone but him. There was times we had arguments with promoters and things like that, but Bobby Eaton always protected me because he said this was my time to shine, and he wanted people to learn about the Golden Boy Greg Anthony, and it wasn't going to hurt him at all to take a 3 count. So Bobby Eaton obviously set my career on a trajectory that wasn't going to be there before. And from there, I met Matt Riviera, the lover boy, Matt Riviera. So Matt Riviera, I met him on a bullshit show in Arkansas a long time ago, and I wrestled some kid in the first match, and we had a really good solid match. And Matt, who was a promoter at the time, and he watched the match, and I came to the back and he said, how long you been training the kid? And I said, well, he's not my kid, he's so-and-so's kid. And he said, you didn't train him? I said, no, I've never met him before until about 40 minutes ago or whatever. And he was just blown away that we had that match and with a kid that was that green, and I never met him before. And from that day forth, Matt Riviera booked me on every possible show he's ever had. And that included when he had national television with Traditional Championship Wrestling. And through Traditional Championship Wrestling, I was the most televised guy on that program. And besides that, me and Matt became friends. We're still really good friends. I was best man at his wedding, and he's actually made me up my game. I thought the Golden Boy Greg Anthony, before I met Matt, I called myself the best of the best and that kind of thing. But he even took me to another level because he instilled a work ethic of, if you want it, you gotta go balls to the walls all the time. No one works harder at what they want to do than Matt Riviera. He constantly is surprising people because whatever he says he wants to do, 9 times out of 10 he does it. And if he doesn't do it, it's not by his fault or anything like that. So Matt really instilled that kind of stuff in me, and he's helped me tremendously. I don't think there's anyone personally that's helped me more than he has. And he's a great friend, and you're going to hear a lot about him throughout the podcast. Just his mindset too is we share a lot of the same. We're not twins or nothing. I mean, we have different thought processes on some stuff. We disagree on some stuff, but for the most part, we agree on most the way things are meant to be presented. Also, guys like, my friend John Michael. John Michael and I grew up together. We actually went to elementary school together. I'm a couple years older than him, but nonetheless, we still went to elementary school together. And we grew up together, and then we both had a passion for professional wrestling. And, it was him that we latched onto, and we eventually broke in the business, together. And we've always been tight. We've always been friends. And like, even to this day, he's helped me so much out with Pro Wrestling Mid-South. I may be the booker, but he's the assistant booker. And if you know anything about booking, then there's always a booker, but then there's a guy helping the guy. You know what I mean? And that's what John Michael is. He's so detail oriented on a lot of his stuff that, I'm a very broad thinker about, hey, this is where we need to go. And then John Michael's very good at, well, we need to do this here to get there. And without that kind of rapport with somebody, and without that kind of thing, then the rest of it kind of just falls apart. So it's always best to have that kind of rapport and have that kind of someone that can help you do that. The worst thing you could have is two long-term thinkers trying to book a show, because they want to go in different directions a lot of time. You need to have that one person that's very detail-oriented to kind of help you get there, or give you something in that angle, or give you something in that match that you didn't think about that would make it all make sense, And that's what John Michael is. Another guy that's helped us out a lot is Simon Reed. Simon is another guy that, we've known each other since we were, 18, 19 years old. I met him because of wrestling. I didn't know him outside of wrestling, but, we grew up in the same area and stuff like that. And he's went above and beyond to do things for this company and to help me and help everyone along the way. So, he's built things and put things together and actually done the physical hard work that it takes to actually run. And that's what people don't think about when they think about professional wrestling a lot of times, is a lot of those certain things. So he's definitely been a close friend, but he's also, he's been also a great member of our roster. He's part of one of the greatest tag teams in this area's history in the Posse. Multiple time tag team champions, and still one of the most, one of the most respected, and people want to pay to see them. After all these years, it's been almost 20 years of the Posse's been together, and people still want to see that tag team, so that's been good as well. As far as like influences go, wrestling-wise, I've always been really drawn to the seamless Southern heels. Now, when I say that, when I was a kid, of course, I loved all the good guys and I hated all the bad guys, just the way it was. But for some reason, I was still drawn to those guys like Arn Anderson and Bobby Eaton and Tully Blanchard and Ted DiBiase and Terry Taylor and guys like that for some reason, because I didn't know what it was. Like, I knew, like, I liked Tom Zink. I liked the Z-Man Tom Zink. But, like, when he was wrestling Arn Anderson, like, something clicked in me to go, well, that's going to be a great match. I need to watch that one. Not knowing necessarily that it was Arn. As he would say, he was the straw that stirred the drink. You know what I mean? I recently got to meet Arn Anderson and tell him how much he meant to me, in his career, and how he's one of my all-time favorites and things like that. And, on the same show, Cowboy Bob Orton was there, and he said, Cowboy Bob Orton was that for me. He said he used to go and watch Bob Orton and Dick Slater tag team, and they were one of the greatest tag teams of that era. And a lot of people don't talk about that, but they were actually one of the most fluid tag teams of that generation. And like I said, Arn would go watch them wrestle, and he said he started picking up on it. Like, these are the guys that are actually making everything happen. So it was his love for Orton and Slater that kind of got him in the business. And obviously, like I said, when I got to meet him, he meant that to me. So, and that's what the business is about. It's about that tradition of the next guy. We're always trying to find the next guy to do whatever. I've also, I'm a fan of Terry Funk and Harley Race and Shawn Michaels. I think Shawn Michaels is obviously one of the greatest of all time. I think that people think sometimes that he's too new to be considered the GOAT, but I mean, I'm of the belief that there's not too many people that tell better stories and have better matches than Shawn Michaels. Mm-hmm. I mean, you watch him he almost has matches with the old adage that he can have a match with a broomstick. That's what Shawn Michaels is. He's that good. And I may be in the minority here, but I actually think that his work after 2002, after he came back from the back injury, I think that work is better than his pre-back injury work. Because I think that he was much smarter. He was much more deliberate in what he was doing. I think everything he did made much more sense. Then he was very much a safer wrestler. He wasn't taking all kinds of crazy, unnecessary bumps. He landed flat on everything, and that's what we teach our students here at the school is we want you to land flat on everything. And I really feel that he was doing so many great old school things in this era, and people didn't realize that's the reason it was so great. And that's kind of what we go through nowadays too, is everybody says that all these things don't work anymore. Old school doesn't work. It's passe. People don't want to see good versus evil anymore. But the minute we give them good versus evil, the minute we do an old school wrestling match, the minute we give them, those things, they explode like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. AEW fans, I don't care what anybody says, the greatest AEW match to date is Cody Rhodes versus Dustin. And that was as old school as it gets. It was brother versus brother. It was, buckets of blood. It was storytelling. It was bump and sell. I mean, it was sell being the main aspect of that, obviously. And that is, to me, the best match they have produced thus far. Everything else has been, just hokey, funny, let's do this, let's do that, it doesn't matter kind of stuff. And when you're a true wrestling professional and a true wrestling booker and things like that, you realize that everything you do matters. Every way you are presented matters. People say all the time, well, it's entertainment. You can be anything you want to be and do anything you want to do, and I completely disagree with that. If we could do anything we want to do and be anything we want to be, then why aren't we all Stone Cold Steve Austin? Why aren't we all The Rock? Why aren't we all Ric Flair? Why aren't we all Hulk Hogan? Because we can't do that. Those things are, in some cases, once in a generation type things. So you have to realize you have to have a lot of you have to be really self-aware to really make it in this business. I understand that me being, 5'8" and the size that I am and the things that I do, that I'm not Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'm never going to be. I have to be the best Greg Anthony that I can be. And it takes years to figure that out sometimes. And guys sometimes get pushed on TV way too fast, or they don't know exactly what they're doing. NXT went from a developmental territory to on national television every week. it's hard to develop somebody when they're on that large a stage. So the big thing is you have to know what is going to work for you, and usually the only way to do that is be around somebody that's been around the business long enough that kind of can see the trends in front of them. But then also when it comes to influences, of course I'm talking about booking stuff. Booking is a lost art in professional wrestling. There's no doubt about it. And the thought process that Jim Cornette and Bill Watts and Gary Hart and Eddie Graham and guys like that honed over years and decades and things like that, those are the guys that made millions of dollars with their mind in professional wrestling. And that to me is huge. We've all, wrestlers I'm talking about, we all, thought about funny things we could do in wrestling. Oh, wouldn't it be funny if we did this? It was on the card away to a show. Wouldn't it be funny if I did this? And then somewhere along the way in the last 10, 15 years, they started doing them. There was no thought process of, well, this is going to hurt the business or this. We're just going to, all these funny things we're talking about, this is all fun anyway. Let's just go out there and do them. And what they're actually doing is they're hurting themselves. They're hurting the professional wrestling business as a whole, and they're hurting the overall product for years to come. I really think professional wrestling needs a good, swift kick in the ass. We need more people with that traditional, classic, old school, if that's what you want to call it, mindset of good versus evil. The greatest stories ever told are good versus evil. And to say that is passé or that people don't want to see that anymore, I completely disagree. They say, well, it's like professional sports. You have your favorite teams, you have your least favorite teams, you do this and do that. It's completely different. Wrestling's like a lot of things. Wrestling is like comic books. Wrestling is like movies. Wrestling is like professional sports. Wrestling is like this. Wrestling is like that. But you know what wrestling really is? Wrestling is like professional wrestling. It's its own specific art form. It's its own specific entity that needs to be protected at all costs. And there's certain things that you can do in professional wrestling that you can't do anywhere else. Ergo, there's certain things that you can't do in professional wrestling. And I think that over the last 10 years, we've seen that. We've gotten so far away from a lot of those core values that that the numbers are staggering. By no measurable metric is professional wrestling better now than it was 20, 30 years ago. In no way. And that's the kind of things that we're going to talk about on the 30-minute Midas Touch every week. We're going to dive into a lot of those subjects. I'm going to talk about personal issues, personal things that have happened to me in the business and stories like that, and we're going to do all of it. But for the most part, we're here to give you guys knowledge. I know there's going to be a lot of wrestlers and a lot of promoters and a lot of bookers and a lot of like that. I really want you guys to really listen to my thought process, and maybe, just maybe, I change something in something you do. And maybe that makes your product better. Maybe that makes your training better. Maybe that makes your shows better. Maybe that makes your champion better. Maybe that makes your babyface, your heel, whatever. Maybe it makes everything better. Because that's what I want it to be. I want it to be as the best it possibly could be. Because the better professional wrestling is as a whole, the better we all are. I'm tired of WWE and AEW and a few other people making a living at professional wrestling basically by making it a joke. I want professional wrestling to be taken seriously because I take it seriously. I've dedicated my life to it. I've almost died because of professional wrestling. And I think that we need voices of reason. We got Jim Cornette out there, but people like to tune him out too. I'm going to rant and I'm going to cuss and things like that too, but I'm going to try to do it in a respectful way, and I hope you know where I'm coming from when I do it. But for the end of the day, we want professional wrestling to be as good as gold. Thank you, and tune in next time on the 30-minute Midas Touch.